Oh, that's really well explained. And it actually leads me to another question here. How do or how can Scope 3 emissions influence purchasing decisions in real life?
Well, let me take
Hmm.
this one. It's it it will become, or it is already changing the way we look at selection of suppliers and selection of items. If you think about it in supply chain, and not just in maritime but everywhere, you base your decisions on on the basis of three main characteristics. One is equality, another is the price, and another is the availability. Without going too much in details with example of that, this is clear. Now the order of priority may change. There could be different tone of it where you define quality as the quality of the item in itself or the quality of the item in its life cycle in the long term, also including the end of life, like Rasmus was mentioning before, but still this is about quality. Whether this is perception, whether there are correct methodology to measure quality, it varies depending on the items. A banana is quality is whether it's too much mature or it's not enough mature. On a screwdriver can be it is sturdy and good, but in the end it's quality. The other one is price, and we don't have to discuss much more about it. It's again it's price versus quality. They are interconnected, but still quality is another pillar. And then you have the availability. I mean, there is no point in you having the best banana in the world for the cheapest price in the world if you're not able to deliver it. That's quite clear. Now we're adding a fourth element, which is going to be very important because the scope 3 emissions, so the emissions generated and the impact of this item on the environment are going to be a fourth decision-making principle. With the simplest of the examples, if I have two items from two different suppliers which are exactly the same in the first three parameters, they are the same quality or the same perception of quality according to my needs, they have exactly the same price, and they're both available in 15 days or they're both available today. Well, if one has more emission than the other, then if I am pressed by the regulatory business or by my own ethical choices in impacting the environment less, I will select the item which has lowest emission, provided that its emissions are properly documented, properly calculated, and properly supported. So this had complexity because, of course, it's difficult to find the two suppliers with all the three parameters exactly the same, but that could be one supplier which is slightly more expensive, but dramatically less impacting on the emissions. So what is more important for me? Every company will put these four priorities in different order maybe, but still what before was based only on three parameters now is based on four parameters. So as soon as the scope 3 emission data for each and every item will be clear and properly supported by data, this will inevitably become an additional dimension into procurement. And of course, like every new thing's coming, it will open for opportunities. It will it will give proper visibility to those vendors which are able to use better their production capabilities in making sure they have a lower impact. So in the end, a lower impact, it will equal to lower cost. And in theory will provide a better opportunity to suppliers which are scoring and performing better in this additional dimension.
The unknown we don't know yet, Paolo, is we expect eventually, because of regulations, there will be a price impact on the emissions that we indirectly now get data from, right? So you're talking about maybe doing an ethical decision, but there will also be a decision probably vectored on price eventually.
Yeah, but this is again, we're talking about the 4 dimensions. So if the price goes up for a particular supplier because of his emissions, then this will obviously drive more the accent into I mean, it will increase the gap between those two items. So the items with lower emissions will definitely be turned into being also cheaper because it has lowest emission.
There is also another driver, if I may contribute here, and I think if we go, I think it's excellent that we identify now suddenly we will have more parameters because, first of all, there are suppliers out there while we have been in dialogue with different suppliers throughout the IMEF creation. We can definitely see as we extend the scope of IMEF, we will see suppliers of high quality goods that suddenly will be rewarded because they will be creating products of a higher quality. But because they have been missing the quality parameter, and then you can ask, how can quality be translated into emissions? Well, it can if you start comparing the life cycles. That means once we start expanding the IMEF initiative, we will also have, you could call the emission side of total cost of ownership. So suddenly we will start knowing the emissions from when it was manufactured until end of life. And that can be correlated into the life cycle, in the emission cycle of the product. So if you have a product that lasts longer, let's say 10 years, and then you have another product that might last only 3 years. Well, naturally, from a procurement point of view, if you want to buy, well, if your criteria is you want to buy high quality, and you will suddenly see that the lower quality product might have the same emissions, but it only lasts 3 years. That means you'll have over 3 times as many emissions throughout the 10-year period. And that's a game changer, I will think, for many suppliers, because now suddenly they will be rewarded for creating longer lasting products that will probably require less emissions to maintain. There will be less spare parts or something to maintain. So that's an interesting part. And then if we zoom out into the company perspective, we will also start seeing, we already have ship owners which um, have gone on the net zero wave. That means them as a company. We have ship owners out there that have committed to net zero emissions by 2030, 2040, 2050. And what that translates into is also from a fuel perspective, well, as you mentioned, Paolo, a lot of the emissions from a ship owner today is from fuels. But once we start decarbonizing the fuel, the supply chain emissions will increase in exposure.
Yeah.
And what that really means is, well, if you have a net zero ambition, you will have to decarbonize using certificates or other projects in order to meet the net zero requirement. So that will also mean, what are the difference between these projects and then your organic supply chain decarbonization? That will be the price that many ship owners in some years will start putting on products. And the gap between the lower emission product that might have a small premium, 5%, well, if that is lower than what it will cost to buy decarbonization projects from a third party, then you will be rewarded as a supplier. So I think this will also be a wake-up call for many suppliers, that they suddenly can start getting rewarded. At least they will be able to sell more products if they have a lower carbon footprint, both compared to other products, but also compared to this dollar value that might come later on, Michael, that you were talking into there. And that is from the company perspective, and also a very interesting development that is very hard for us to say where that ends, but it's definitely going to be introduced at some point.
And if you want to have an image or a vision, maybe in the future, a purchasing department will have a budget of dollars, and a budget of emissions. And both will have to work in parallel. And sometimes you will be driven to buy items which are costing a little bit more, but they are lower in emissions, because in the end the emissions will be dollars. So should I buy a cheaper item which has higher emission and then report those emissions and buy carbon certificates to offset the emission that I've generated buying an item which is more polluting? Or shall I just buy directly an item which is a little bit more expensive but lower on emissions, because in the end it will be better for the company because of the life cycle, because of the maintenance, because of the emissions, and because of the cost. So it's going to be a different world when we're talking about these 4 parameters and the way these 4 parameters will interact in the purchasing decision.